BR5 to Murray Farm, and earlier the BR42. I don't think that it really makes much of a difference because in the end, it was part of the Murray Farm. So he just kind of picked this little spot and wanted to make something else. And in the end, it all got turned right back into the Murray Farm. But I did want to point it out because it was in there, and that was one of the top 4. And you knew I saved the best for last, and that's why I had to make sure I kept moving pretty fast so we could have some fun here, right? My favorite, it's the top of Spanish Hill, BR27. And so, if you're not familiar with it, that's where Spanish Hill sits in the whole range of things. That's a pretty good shot of that top of the hill, too. Obviously, this part of the hill was shaved off for the highway. And thankfully, Ellsworth Cowles was part of the team that actually saved it from all becoming highway fill, or else we wouldn't have anything to talk about. So, we're talking about this area right up here, okay? And this is how I learned about the Griffin Report, okay? I was reading Susquehanna's Indians by Barry Kent, written in 1984. And on page 301, the infamous page 301 I like to call it, he says this: the Tioga Point Museum in 1931, with the aid of the grant from the National Research Council, employed James B. Griffin and a field crew to conduct excavations at the Abbey Brennan site. You guys all know that now. The Thurston Farm site, you know that one, although he says south of BR5. Spanish Hill, BR27, and some re-excavations at the Murray Farm site, BR5. Griffin's unpublished reports indicate a wide variety of material from these sites, including an 18th century Indian interment with the Coelum pipe. And that's that trade pipe that we're talking about. So he says it's an 18th century Indian interment at the Abbey Brennan site. Griffin's work confirmed the presence of few Indian artifacts on top of Spanish Hill, but had his report been published, it would have put to rest any further concerns about it being the site of Carondelet or having Indian earthworks around its top margins. This was his slam. This is what closed the book on Spanish Hill. For anybody that was studying archaeology in Pennsylvania, this was part of their study. They read this. They knew this was it. This was the bottom line. Griffin's unpublished report said this, that it put to rest any further concerns about the site of Carondelet or having Indian earthworks around its top margins. Okay? Let's see what it actually says. This is the top of Spanish Hill, BR27. And in 1878, General John S. Clark actually made this survey of the top. This is the top of the hill. Notice, they're not the same shape. You notice that? You see, this is showing where the embankments were. This dotted line, look. Okay? This is not showing you the edge of the top of the hill. It's showing you where he followed the embankments. Very different. Okay? And you can see this part right here actually would be out here somewhere. Okay? You see this little edge? It's probably more in this area. You see? But still, I mean, for me to go out there and try to dig where I think his lines were would probably be pretty problematic at best. In fact, you know, the funny thing is, this is from Griffin's report, and what did he use? He used General John S. Clark's map, his survey, to get this right here. Clearly, didn't he? And where did he dig? Okay, folks, let's think about this. General John S. Clark says this is where the embankments are. Where did Griffin dig? He missed it there, didn't he? absolutely missed that one. How about this one? He missed that one too, didn't he? How about this one? Number 3. That, he could have hit it. Couldn't you? Possibly. How about number 2? Number 2 would have been in here. You have a pretty good chance if it didn't go over the edge. Because remember, this was done in 1878, and he was digging in 1931, so depending on what erosion occurred, we'll see. How about 1? Possibly. Possibly you could have hit that one, right? Same thing. 6, 7, 8. That's out there in no man's land, I think, but we'll take a look. Okay? So that's just laying those back on there. I just threw those back on there so that you can get an idea. Griffin said the major excavations on Spanish Oak consisted of 8 trenches and the numerous test pits in the ridge. Okay? This is trench 1. Thin layer of topsoil or humus. You see right here? Same thing. This is actually how he said. This is how he drew it. Okay? So A. This is the mixture of humus and moss. Okay? A. B. Mixed darker humus. And at the bottom of this layer, so down in here, okay, underneath these layers of soil, in here, he says he found charcoal and fire-colored earth along the east face of the trench. How did that get there? Somebody had to be there at that level, didn't they? The next was light yellow loess, and then hard brown earth. He said that's where the rocks of the moraine started to show, and that was the bottom. Okay? So he missed drawing something in that illustration, didn't he? Something like that. Something that would have shown some other charcoal fire area that he didn't show in that trench in his illustration. You had to read it. Trench 3. We said, oh, he probably could have hit something there too, right? He said, yeah, he did. And it was the only potsherd that was found in Spanish Hill by the group. But he didn't say where he found it, at what level. Then he said it was a small rim piece, grit tempered. The face was smooth with incised parallel lines which slant at 45-degree angles. Boy, guys, can you take a guess at what kind of pottery has 45-degree angle slanted lines incised on them? Anybody? Anybody?